So I had a thought. Shower thoughts again. I'm realizing Eve must have thought she was as powerful as God when she decided to give Adam the fruit. Like, she was convinced, literally convinced, that she would be like God by taking the fruit, right? Adam wasn't there, just her and Satan in the garden. So she takes this fruit. She sees that it tastes good, that it has good looking fruit, and she's convinced, right? It's not until she gives it to Adam that Adam and her can collectively realize that they were naked, and they hid from God as he's walking in the garden later that evening, as he does every day because they spend time together in the evenings in the garden. Now, the seed, for all intent and purposes, is the seed of Satan versus the seed of man, right? She got pregnant. How powerful as a woman do you feel in puberty, childhood, whatever, when you realize that you are the one part of our species that can procreate? We need help from the seed of the man to make the baby, but we actually create the baby. How powerful do you feel? Or do you feel like it's a heavy burden and responsibility? What if Satan, much like an older man coming to a naive young woman, comes and gloats just, or what is it, praises her? Oh, even though you're childlike and God only intends for you to enjoy his protection, wisdom, guidance as your father, you're really being lied to. You're really being held back from the things that you should be able to do because you were created to procreate. And I bet you didn't know that. God doesn't want you to know that because he wants you to live in ignorance and not be like him and not know of the works of the world and all these things. So if you do this with me, it's gonna be the truth. Now, we all know women procreate. It is the truth. That's how our bodies are biologically made. So when she found out that she could be pregnant, especially when you had no idea of this concept beforehand, you're thinking, that's the bee's freaking knees. This must be the truth that God was holding back. Thinking again, the bee's freaking knees, that she can share this with her husband, not realizing the fundamental difference between a man and woman, right? And so, who partakes as well? Knowing what God said as the legacy of God, the physical manifestation of God at that time, still decided to humor the concept of this there's truth, there's sustenance in becoming pregnant. You create a child. Partaking in that without God's approval. And then coming to find out, you as a man cannot procreate like a woman procreates. You can contribute to the creation, but you're not the one birthing the creation. And when God looks for them later on, where are you? And you're hiding yourself because you're ashamed. The pride that comes with having thought of yourself separate from God, first of all, being able to do something that you were tricked into, well, let's say this, you listened to someone who was tricked into believing that they had an answer outside of God, and you partook in the procreation, the creative energy, the creative force, the supernatural, without God's approval. So your first instinct is shame. One, because it did not work for you in the same way it worked for her. And now you feel, I guess the word could be violated. You feel outside of your purpose. You feel outside of what you were made for. And let's go back to it. Adam is the physical manifestation of God's legacy. What is a son to a father? And he decides that instead of listening to his father, having the dominion that he was commanded to have through God's word, he decided to become like God through the guidance of, let's just say like this, they're both children, they're both ignorant, they're both unaware of the truth until this point, and they decide to follow each other. They say it's a covenant with the devil to partake in any wisdom outside of God. Partaking. So when you have now indulged in the first sin, you're aware of the energy and the truth behind what you've done. The knowledge of good and evil is now present. And you are also aware that it doesn't quite make as much sense as everything that you've been given and ordained to do up until this point. So now there's this division between understanding of what a helper, a partner in crime, a Batman to your Robin, as you will, versus a enemy. You believe the person that was sent to keep you company. God has pleasure in community. He has pleasure in fellowship. He has pleasure in us being not alone, as he doesn't want to. He wanted Adam to be there for his legacy in the same way that he wanted Eve to be there for Adam's loneliness, which I believe can translate easily into purpose. If you are dominion of the earth, dominion of the animals, the earth, the sea, the sky, you are responsible for these things. You have a partner. And much in the way that today we are understanding the church to be the bride of Christ, Eve was the bride of Adam, the right hand. Adam was meant to be the right hand of God, representative in his legacy, the right hand of God, dominion. Eve was supposed to support that, the proof, right? Like a third party witness. She was supposed to support this fact. And she took it upon herself, much like I would say a teenage girl being convinced by an older person that they are just the bee's knees. They are just something special about them. It's not the nature of a woman to be a woman. It's you, this particular woman, who has this special offering to give. And because of that, you are just as influential as God himself can be. And the whole time, you're really just being used. The devil used Eve to get back at God. He didn't use Adam, he used Eve. Much like Eve, and I'm going to go full circle with this. In the same way that God used Eve, impregnated her with Cain, and basically divided Adam and Eve in their purpose and in their walk with God, completely destroyed the relationship as it once was, God came back and created an entire person from a virgin, not making virgins better than non-virgins or noble women more valuable than prostitutes, but because if you're going to use a woman to think they're special by birthing through your action, the seed from you, I'm going to one-up you and birth a child with my essence, my plan, the entire physics that I created this world to be. She doesn't even have to have a man involved to have the son of me. The first coming, the second coming, whatever you want to say, the actual plan coming out, even if Adam destroyed the original plan. blessing it is that God can be petty. Like, I wouldn't say that it's petty to prove your point, but maybe I would say it's a little petty to prove your point in the way that we do sometimes, right? The truth is the truth, and the truth shall set us free. So if we're sitting here saying, oh, all we need is our nature to be powerful, God is telling us all we need is Him to be powerful. We don't need anything outside of Him. And that was the proof of the virgin birth. It had nothing to do with virgins being more powerful, more special. They said themselves, Mary was not sinless. She just was a virgin. And she came from a line that was set up to have this happen to them. So I just want to full circle it. The devil tried to get back at God by impregnating the first helpmate, the first partner, the first person that was supposed to prove God's creative forces in the physical realm, by forcing it before its time. And God got back at the devil by proving that it meant nothing. It absolutely means nothing. And here we are, these women walking around thinking that we're special simply because we have a womb. When the only difference between men and women that men are so hung up on in terms of their place in the universe and understanding of their existence is their ability to procreate. That's why all this AI, all of this cloning, all of this artificial womb, they're confused about their purpose and their dominion on this earth. And women are taking the power that they were proposed by Satan himself as something worth something, when really it's worthless outside of God. We only can create chaos if we're not in line with God. As a person that has a child that I know for a fact God wanted me to have, but also it's in the history of what it took to get here. Those things apply. Not having not even traditional marriage, is literally not having God's approval of marriage, the God's approval of procreation, that there's chaos that comes from it. So yeah,